This is the Predators official podcast on ESPN 1025 The Game, Nashville Predators YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform. My name is Max Hers from Preds Radio, along with Kara Hammer from Preds TV and Brooks Bratton from NashvillePredators.com. We are podcasting to you on Wednesday, January 14th, 2026, fresh off a winning homestand for your Nashville Predators. 3 wins and 1 loss on 4 games in 6 nights for the Preds as they stay right in the thick of the playoff hunt past the halfway point of the season. We're going to break down all of those games, and in about 15 minutes, we will be joined by Predators Head Athletic Trainer Kevin Morley for an interview. He is going to be part of the Team USA Olympic staff at the Olympic Games next month. Looking forward to hearing from Kevin and looking forward to talking with 2 of my best friends in the world about some Preds wins. It was a fun weekend in Smashville, Kara. It feels like we played 4 days in a row. The Preds just kept on winning, 3 out of 4.
That's right, Max. I mean, the team seems to have found their rhythm. I mean, Willie Donick sent me a stat last night. They're 11 of 12 when they're in 1-goal games. So things are starting to change for this team. But I was more into the exciting weekend of having some future Hall of Famers in the house. I mean, Alex Ovechkin was in the building, went home with a loss. Connor McDavid was in the building, went home with a loss.
On his birthday.
On his birthday.
So I feel like things are good right now here in Smashville.
No, it was fun. We talk about hockey. You look at things on paper, and that's why you play the games, because what you think might happen probably isn't going to happen. I think maybe going into this, you'd look at all those games and say, Chicago, that's probably the one that you're going to win if you're picking any of them. The Preds don't even score a goal against the Blackhawks, but what a bounce back it was against Washington. I think that was really, again, a back-to-back weekend. We know the schedule has been so tight and so compact. The guys are tired. I mean, I think, you and I, Max and Kara, like we've said before, we're tired and we're not even playing. Imagine how the guys feel. And that was really a great game on Sunday against Washington. We'll get to more on that in a minute with Stamkos and Ovechkin and that sort of dynamic. But the captain, my goodness, we know he's always good, right? Roman Josi is always a great player, but he's on fire right now. 5 points in the last 2 games, including a pair of goals against the Edmonton Oilers, the overtime winner from almost an impossible angle. I love Josi after the game saying that, thank goodness it went in, because I really didn't want to have to skate back up the ice again. He was pretty tired. He didn't have much of a celebration. I don't think he had much energy to have a celebration. But that was really a great way to finish off the homestand, especially considering the Preds losing 6-2 in Edmonton just a week prior, to come home. And Josi also kind of joked, he was in a really good mood last night, but he joked, wow, McDavid only 2 points. I guess that's a pretty good night. You held him to just 2 points. But yeah, that was a really fun way to finish off the homestand. I think it's tough to get fired up on a Tuesday night in January, but that's about as good as it gets under that circumstance. And guys, I think that was just a really impressive showing, the way the Preds, yes, like you're never going to completely shut down a guy like Connor McDavid, but to limit his chances, really good showing from a lot of guys on the back end. Nick Blankenberg, Adam Wilsby sticking with him, especially in overtime, really just slowing him up and not allowing the Oilers to press like they usually do. So really great showing for the Preds on Tuesday night. And again, Roman Josi, what more can you say as he inches closer to a big milestone? But really impressive from the captain.
Yeah, you talk about them being tired. Even in our first star interview on the bench in front of all the fans, I asked Roman specifically about that overtime, and goes, we were tired. We were tired out there. And I feel like, Brooks, and all the times I've interviewed a player, I don't know if one has blatantly come out and expressed kind of how heavy their legs were feeling in the final moments of that game. But I know they had went into it knowing that they needed a quick start. How important was it for this team to come out off the jump? Michael McCarron goes with Darnell Nurse, tries to get everybody into it, get the crowd fired up. But then they were able to score the first goal. And that, I feel, was the biggest game changer for this team, because that's something they have not done recently. Max, we've seen how hard it's been for them to have to continue to play from behind.
Yeah, 10 games in a row, the Preds had conceded the first goal, which is hard to do. And it's even harder to win more than half of those, which they'd done. So pretty crazy. But to play with the lead was a necessity against the Oilers with how poorly the Preds have done in that matchup the last 8 seasons since Draisaitl and McDavid reached that superstar level together. And the Preds only trailed for 38 seconds in this game. The margin was never wider than a goal. Preds led 1-0, led 2-1, down 3-2, but 38 seconds after that superstar Oilers power play got their second goal of the game to give them their only lead of the night at 3-2. Yossi answered with a hammer from the point, and then the overtime goal. I mean, that's one of the more unique walk-offs we have ever seen in Preds hockey. Yossi gets the flip pass from O'Reilly. Even at the end of a 2-minute shift defending McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard, he goes for it. He sends it. Tristan Jarry comes way off his mark and does get the puck away from Yossi, but Brady Shea sticks with it too. Yossi opens up for a tough angle one-timer. I don't know what Evan Bouchard was doing. He's not going to be a good goalie if he wants to be a goalie in the future, because Yossi had plenty of room to get that through as long as he hit the net from a tough angle, which he did. And after a really hard D-zone shift for 2 defensemen to combine on an OT winner of that caliber, that's a special moment. And what's been a pretty special run for these Preds, they're 16-8 in their last 24 games since that bad loss to the Panthers before Thanksgiving, and they haven't lost back-to-back games in that entire stretch.
Third best record in the Western Conference since then, Kara.
And Brooks, you touched on it, but I just want to highlight here Nick Blankenburg, his skate work there and that overtime taking on Connor McDavid. He was also a player who earlier in the game had drew a penalty to give up one of the power play goals to put Edmonton back in business. But then he turns around right afterwards and he sets up the assist for Roman Yossi. So let's give a little to Nick Blankenburg, who I felt just came out and was able to play sound hockey when he needed to.
Friend of the show, Nick Blankenburg. Yeah, I was remarking as we were sitting in the press box last night, he's so good at what he does, the role that he fills and the guys that he matches up against. I think at one point we lost track of the amount of plays that he broke up, either by intercepting a pass or just riding someone off into the boards or just getting in front of the puck. A really impressive showing for him against some of the top guys in the NHL, the toughest guys to defend. So we mentioned Roman Yossi. There's a ton of great stats that NHLPR put out. I won't read them all, but the one that I think is noteworthy, Yossi is just the 6th defenseman in NHL history with 10 career overtime goals. Pretty impressive. I'm sure we can rack our brains and come up with a couple of memorable ones, but the captain finds a way to get it done in overtime. And kind of lost in the shuffle of all of this was Steven Stamkos, Kara, that first goal of the night early on. Goal number 602 to officially pass Jari Kurri for 21st all-time in NHL history. You mentioned the 16-8 record, Max, and it feels like every time the Predators win, there's a new milestone for Steven Stamkos. We're at this point where, again, they're kind of getting lost in the shuffle because it's like, oh, well, Roman had 2 goals. Oh, and yeah, by the way, another milestone for Stam or whatever. Yeah, we're used to it at this point.
It's just great to see him producing and to see him do it in a Preds uniform, keep hitting these milestones. And against the Oilers, a good time to pass Jari Kurri. So well done, Stammer.
Yeah.
Well
Looking
said.
at the Capitals game, the time before playing Edmonton, Steven Stamkos was able to score on the power play in the first period, and that actually moved him into top 10 in power play goals. So we could just do a highlight show of Steven Stamkos and what he's been able to accomplish this season.
Well, and what a cool dynamic against the Capitals, right? And a couple of guys talked about it. Andrew Brunette mentioned it post-game as well. But dueling power play goals from Alex Ovechkin and Steven Stamkos. We all know that Ovechkin became the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer last season, which is a tremendous accomplishment, obviously, on its own. And he continues to add to that total. But we all know as hockey fans, as we've watched the game for the last 2 decades with these guys, where do they score their goals from? On the power play, from the left circle, the one time, the right-handed shots into the twine like they've done so many times before. And that's exactly what we got back to back. Ovechkin on the power play, Stamkos on the power play, the one-timer from the left circle. That was a pretty cool moment. And Andrew Brunette mentioned after the fact, like, I hope that people appreciated that because we may never see 2 gentlemen with over 600 goals, 900 goals. Their totals are absurd. And doing what they do best back to back like that, maybe the last time, we don't know how much longer anybody's going to play, but that was a really cool moment. Even though you don't want to see it as a Preds fan on the Washington side, you have to appreciate what Alex Ovechkin has done for the game. And then to see Stamkos counter right back. And Kara, I know that Brunette wasn't the only one to mention that.
No, I had Cole Smith post game and I asked him about that. What was it like having that front row view? And he goes, I looked over at McCarron and goes, we just got to see those one-timers. And I just thought, I felt so many people, us on the broadcast team, we were talking about kind of the treat that we were getting to witness. I know probably most of the fans in Smashville were in the same sentiment, but to look at the players and Max, I know you always love to talk to Federer. We got to figure out, did he actually get to congratulate Ovi this time? Because I know last time he took on Ovechkin, he wanted to tell him in Russian, congrats on reaching the record, but didn't have the chance. Do we know if he was able to do it this time?
I'm going to go with no. I don't know that for sure, but I think maybe someday. But yeah, Svechkov, obviously a big Ovechkin admirer, as every Russian player is. And I mean, the cool thing for me was to think about the perspective of, just like I said with Stamkos, what it means to have these things happening in Nashville. And this was just the second time ever that the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer played in Nashville. We got Wayne Gretzky once in the Preds' inaugural season in February of 1999. He did not score a goal, but he did have 5 assists in a 7-4 Rangers win against the inaugural season Preds. And we had to wait almost 27 full years for it to happen again, with Alex Ovechkin passing Gretzky, his first time coming here since the record. And it really lived up to the billing. I mean, that was a milestone goal for Ovechkin. It was his 20th goal of the season. He now has 20 goals in every single season he's played. He's 21 for 21. And if he plays one more year, he will have a chance to tie Gordie Howe, who has the most 20-goal seasons ever. So I think he got a little extra on the celly for Ovi on that one, who's never going to undersell a nice power play goal. And I mean, what a goal it was. But honestly, I think Stamkos might have had the even prettier goal. The no-look cross-seam pass from Forsberg right down the gut on the power play from the right point to a tough, low left side one-timer for Stamkos. I mean, those are pretty goals across the board, and that's one that we really got to savor. So for all of that to happen on home ice and in a Preds win, really, really special stuff that doesn't happen every day, that's for sure.
Would you guys agree that we're also starting to see the Steven Stamkos that maybe we didn't see at the beginning of the year? You don't know if it was a frustration of not being able to score goals, but I felt like last night talking with Luke Richardson during the intermission about Stamkos, he goes, his wheels are turning right now. You can see it. I think the coaches have seen it. I think the fans have seen it. It feels like he's almost playing at a different level.
Yeah. No, you definitely get that sense. I mean, at least the best that we've seen here in the year and a half in Nashville. And yeah, I mean, we've talked to different guys in the room, just, especially some of the younger guys. I think that's what's been really cool, is to get their perspective, just what they think of playing with him. Somebody who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And at this stage of his career, his play, I think, on the ice and just his energy off the ice is so infectious. And especially when somebody of that caliber is going the way he's going right now, you can't help but feed off of that and rally around that. And Stamkos, he would give the credit to Yossi. He mentioned the other day that he's like, when did this thing turn around? When Roman Yossi came back from his injury earlier in the season, and things have started going. But everybody's kind of going right now. Like, the guys that you need to be playing well, they're playing well. And I think, we've heard Brunette, we've heard some of the guys say it recently, that they know what they're capable of in that room, the belief in that room. They think they can beat any team in the NHL on any given night. And you see it against a team like Washington, against a team like Edmonton. Those are not easy games. No game is an easy game in the NHL, but especially in those circumstances. Now, what does it look like when you go to Colorado and Vegas? Another tough test coming up on the road. But I think the most important thing to mention off of this homestand is Nashville is at 48 points, and they're right on that borderline of the wild card in the Western Conference, and that was certainly not the case a couple of months ago. And I liked what Andrew Brunette said after Tuesday's win. He said, "We know what it takes to get back in, how much work we put into it, and we know how important it is now to not let it slip." We've talked about that win the week mindset, that one game at a time mindset, the team getting tighter and tighter as every night goes on. But that's key. We're proud of what we've done so far, but there's so much work to do. Now, the key is not letting it slip. And that is the mindset and the focus for the Predators as they continue on here in mid-January.
Hey, Preds are in a good place right now. And coming up next, we are going to talk to a face that you see on TV quite a bit. You don't get to hear from too often, but we have a good excuse. He's going to the Olympics. Predators head athletic trainer Kevin Morley will join us next. He will be part of the Team USA athletic training staff coming up next month at the Olympics in Italy. This is the Predators official podcast on ESPN 1025 The Game.
Welcome back to the Predators official podcast here on ESPN 1025 The Game, streaming on YouTube and a whole slew of other spots. Back on the program, Brooks Bratton, along with my friends Max Hers and Kara Hammer. And we're really excited to be joined by our next guest, someone who maybe you don't necessarily expect to talk to, but a fascinating person nonetheless, and an Olympian. We will touch so much more on that. Preds head athletic trainer Kevin Morley is joining us here on the POP. Kevin, first off, welcome. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. We're really excited to do this because we've talked already on the show, previous episodes, about we know the Preds Olympians, Roman Josi, Jussi Saros, Philip Forsberg, Eric Haula, all headed to Milan for the 2026 games. But they're not the only ones. You are also going in a different capacity. You're not on the ice. You're close to the ice for Team USA. First off, the Olympic Winter Games, as an athletic trainer for USA Hockey, can you put into words what this honor means for you and your family?
No, I don't think so. And I have a lot of words. So for me to not have words is probably surprising for a lot of people. But I mean, you just don't ever think, I was a swimmer growing up. I swam in college. I certainly know I wasn't ever going to go as a swimmer. And so, when my fledgling athletic career finished, I certainly thought that was the end of it. And so to have this opportunity, obviously, is such an honor for me, just thinking back at all the summer and winter games that I watched as a kid, swimming, but, other things as well. And obviously, I haven't been in hockey now for almost 25 years. Haven't watched, obviously, it's been a while since the NHL has been in the Olympics, but even just watching, all the games, it's just such an honor to represent, because you just think all the people you're representing, my academic programs, obviously my family, my town I grew up in, and of course the Preds, and the USA. So it's very, very humbling.
Kevin, you were in a similar role last year for the Four Nations face-off. How do you even get on the radar to be in this capacity to join Team USA?
In truth, I get that question a lot. I'm not totally sure. And I don't ask any questions because it happened. So I'm just going to take it and run with it. But to your point here, yeah, I was invited by Billy Guerin, it's been a year and a half ago now, to join what was, of course, then, on the upcoming Four Nations tournament. And so the medical staff for that tournament, I joined two other athletic trainers from the Minnesota Wild, and then the orthopedic surgeon, the team physician for the Minnesota Wild, equipment guys from a couple different places. And so obviously we kind of, sourced from all over the NHL. And, how that actually happened, in truth, I really don't know, because I just said I couldn't say yes fast enough, and so I didn't really care. And so, we knew that the plan was that the whole staff, coaching staff, equipment folks, video, really everybody, team services, the plan was for us to kind of get to know each other through the Four Nations experience and kind of not necessarily work out the kinks. A lot of us knew each other in some capacity. Obviously, John Hines is on that staff, who I've known back since our New Jersey days. And so, we've all interacted with each other in different capacities along the way, but to really come together, the Four Nations tournament obviously was so exciting and such an awesome experience for us personally, but of course was so impactful. And I think, blew out of the water anything that the league expected it to be. And those all the games were awesome. Obviously, even the USA Canada game we lost was just like an unbelievable experience, I think, for everybody. And to be able to play them once in Montreal and once in Boston was I mean, I've been in a lot of hockey games, and those are two that I think, I know I'll never forget. And so to then have this opportunity again to kind of keep that staff, the whole staff has stayed together. We've added a massage therapist from the Buffalo Sabres that we're really excited about. We've added a team services kind of media relations guy as well. But I mean, largely same staff, same group of people. So it's nice to feel like we've gotten kind of the initial, I don't want to say kinks worked out, but we've gotten to know each other a little bit. We kind of understand everybody's kind of flow. Obviously, Olympics will be a different animal with, of course, the village and some different, obviously the geography, everything's different. But at the same time, we spent our entire careers going from rink to rink and city to city. And so we're reasonably nimble in that regard, where we're comfortable kind of setting up and making things work, because it's not always the same thing.
Our guest on the Preds official podcast is Predators head athletic trainer Kevin Morley, who will be part of the Team USA athletic training staff for the Olympics coming up next month. So, Kevin, before you were an Olympian, before you ever were in Nashville, tell us, please, how you got to the Preds and how you joined the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Max. So I worked at my first job out of grad school was in college hockey. I worked at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and loved it there, and just kind of got the itch after a period of time where I knew I was ready for a different challenge. And at the time, the American League job for the New Jersey Devils organization was open, and through some professional contacts was connected with the Lamarillo family and some different folks. So made the move from college hockey into the AHL at the time. And so I spent start to finish 14 years in the Devils organization. We were in Lowell, Massachusetts to start. Then they picked us up. Release ran out. So they picked us up and moved us to Albany, New York. So it was in that one position, two cities, same job for a little bit. And then went down to New Jersey and finished and spent the last, I think I was the head athletic trainer in New Jersey for 5 years, in New Jersey for 8 total and 14 with the club. And then the Preds, Andy Hostler, who's a very good friend then and continues to be a good friend now with the New York Rangers. Andy Hostler was going to make a move for some family related and personal reasons. And so the Preds position was open. He felt like I'd be a good fit for it. And so, of course, went through the interview process, which was still kind of at the tail end of COVID, which was a very Zoom focused process. And just, got such great energy there was a couple of people I already knew on the Preds side. Most people I didn't, but just everybody from, Sean Henry was part of my interview. Michelle was part of my interview. Obviously the team physicians were part of my interview. Vicky Woosley was part of my interview. And so it just became so clear that the Preds was, I know it's a buzzword to talk about a family environment, but it really was so comprehensive that, this hire was really important to a lot of people. I could have talked to an HR person, and just kind of checked some boxes, and that's not what happened. And so people really spent a lot of time, really diving into kind of what it means to work for the Preds and what we're looking to accomplish here and some forward growth. And of course, David Poyle was the GM at the time. So I spent a lot of time with David and Brian Poyle as well. And so now obviously we've been through some changes, but, the energy hasn't changed at all. The energy, and of course Barry Trotz leaving and coming back is really exciting for all of Preds Nation. So it's been a great. This is season 5 that we're in now, and it feels like it was just yesterday, I guess.
What led you within your dream of wanting to work in sports medicine and athletic training at a high level, attracted you to hockey specifically?
Nothing. It just happened. I have no, story about how I grew up outside Hartford, Connecticut, and I did go to a handful of Whalers games with, Kevin Dean and Ray Ferraro and Mike Liute, and, those days, Ron Francis. And I was, like I said, I was a swimmer, so I spent all my time in the pool. And so my best friend growing up, this is like my childhood best friend was a hockey player, went to the rink a little bit with him. But there was hockey was not necessarily on my radar, and I finished grad school and I was looking for a job. I needed to start working. I needed to pay back some loans. And the position at Miami University working with the hockey team was open and seemed like it would be a good fit. And I look back now on all the things I didn't know, and and I'm just glad that I've taken the path that I've taken, because it's just been, and that was in 2001. So I'm dating myself by saying that, but it was, so it's been an interesting ride.
So Kevin, just to give some insight to Preds fans on your role as the head athletic trainer in Nashville, you're on the bench during games. Perhaps some folks have seen you on the ice tending to an injured player, but how do you describe your role as the head athletic trainer for an NHL club?
Yeah, I generally, kind of in a nutshell, I just say that I oversee all the medical services for the Preds. And so that doesn't mean I deliver all the services. It just means I oversee them. I have a lot of administrative responsibilities in terms of interfacing with obviously both our medical staff here in Nashville, which, as an extension, of course, is all of our team physicians, most of whom are associated with the Vanderbilt Medical Center. We have a couple of private practice folks as well. But that's everyone from the things that you would expect in terms of orthopedics and sports medicine. But, people get sick and people have families and and wives or spouses get pregnant. And so those aren't necessarily my jobs to manage that care, but certainly as a kind of from a management perspective, I do, get involved in kind of connecting a lot of dots. And of course, then, kind of the next extension, of course, is our Milwaukee group. And so, we have a full medical staff in Milwaukee. There's a little bit fewer, there's fewer of them than we have here in Nashville, but they have everything we have. They just have maybe a little bit, fewer of them and a little bit less space, but, they do a great job. And so I'm interfacing with them a lot. We have some great stuff there. They don't really need my help, which is great. But we do interface a lot. Obviously we're having, player transactions all the time. So I need to know what's going on down there. To a certain extent, they need to know what's going on up here. So, we work with our prospects a little bit. And so the folks, depending on where they are and what type of things are going on with them, sometimes we're talking to the junior teams or their clubs in Europe just to make sure that they're getting what they need. And we understand there are times when we get involved. Most of the time we don't because we don't have to. But it's really important that we have our finger on the pulse of everything that's happening throughout the organization. So, my favorite part of my job is the actual medical care part. I like working with our players. I'm a hands-on therapist. And so I like that part of it. My staff will tell you that probably less and less every year am I afforded the time to do that because there's so many administrative things that kind of fall under this umbrella. But that's how I describe my role.
Looking ahead to the Olympic Games, Kevin, what are you most looking forward to in your role?
I guess the obvious answer, of course, would be, the games in the medal rounds and that we're hoping to play in and planning on playing in. I think apart from that, it's just the experience. Working in the NHL is the best thing that I've ever done, apart from having, being a parent and having children and those sorts of things. But I've done this for a long time and it never gets boring and it never gets old, but it does get a little cyclical, a little formulaic. We kind of know what to expect from place to place, So, working, even just being in a different environment, being around female athletes, will be the way we're set up in the village in Milan is that all of the USA is in the building that we're in. There's lots of different villages because the footprint of the games is really, really spread out. And so in Milan, there's not that many sports happening. So in our village, the U.S. women's team is in the same building as us. And then we've got a shared treatment kind of medical space. So the men's staff and the women's staff, we're sharing that space. And so, of course, the women's tournament starts a good 10 days or so, maybe even more prior to the men even getting there. So they'll already be up and running. And so we'll be able to cheat off of them because they'll send us some videos and things of all the things. We've seen mock-ups of all these spaces, but until you really get there, it's kind of like when you go to buy a house and you see the pictures of the house and it always looks way bigger on the website. And then you get there and you're like, ooh, So I think that's probably what I'm expecting. And so the collaboration with the women's team, even prior to getting there, has been awesome. And a lot of the folks on the women's team, on the women's side rather, have done Olympic Games before. So they're absolutely babysitting us through this, and we couldn't be more appreciative of that. And so I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to collaborate with them to whatever extent as possible. I'm excited to see some other events. I watch a lot of hockey games and I have a really great view, and that never gets boring and never gets old, but it is always interesting to see something different because I don't ever get to see anything different. So, in Milan, in addition to men's hockey and women's hockey, are all the speed skating events and then all the figure skating events. And so we're still trying to, of course, my primary responsibility will be to take care of our players. But when there's opportunities, depending on kind of the schedule and transportation and all the X factors, I'd love to see some figure skating. I'd love to see some speed skating. Of course, you want to spend a lot of time at rinks. So I've seen all these things a little bit, but I mean, certainly not at the Olympic level. So things like that, I think, are going to be the X factor that really, make it, again, just the whole Olympic experience.
Yeah, I was curious, like, what other sport you could be interested going to the Olympics. You talk about speed skating, and like, I'm thinking about Apollo Ono and how incredible his Olympic journey was. But do you have a favorite Olympic memory looking back that you might be thinking about as you head here?
Not really on the winter side. Again, I'm a swimming nerd, so obviously I have to go back to Phelps in '08 with the 8 gold medals. Like that's a tap in, right? That's easiest. Katie Ledecky's been an absolute goat for years and years. So I mean, between Ledecky and Phelps, like those are easy answers for me. On the winter side, I actually spent a period of time earlier in my career working for the X Games. And so I have a little bit of experience with some of the snow sports. And I did a winter X Games only one time, because I spent most of my time in hockey. But, the slope style stuff, the big air, the vert ramp, those sorts of things on skis and snowboards, any of those things when you see them in real life, and you guys obviously even just experiencing hockey games in real life, like it's a different environment when you see it in real life as opposed to when you see it on TV. So when I, having been at the Winter X Games, seeing how big the vert ramp is or the half pipe, how big it is and how high they go and how fast they spin and things like that, you can't, I think it's just a different experience seeing it in real life. So, I spent a little bit of time with Shaun White as a skateboarder. I didn't really see he came on to snowboarding a little bit later, but I mean, all those things that were just so impressive. And again, then just the realization that those are also people, right? So, to Preds fans, right? Most Preds fans aren't interacting with Roman Josi or Philip Forsberg on a regular basis. And so, of course, all four of us, right? Like we know them as people too. And so that's the fun part, is to really get to know people and establish relationships with the person. And then to watch people perform, is really exciting. And I think it makes it even more special.
Kev, we'll finish on this, and you touched on it at the beginning. It's tough to put into words what this means for you, your family, your academic institutions, basically all the paths you've crossed. But where is that sense of pride in not only representing your country, but also helping to make sure that these elite athletes are able to compete at full health as they compete and you compete for a gold medal?
I mean, on one hand, obviously it's very exciting, but and kind of fanboy, right? But it's also burdensome, I mean, like I feel as my colleagues and I were reaching out to, of course, the team has been named for a few weeks now. And so as we're reaching out to the other teams, our colleagues in sports medicine, and calling, Vegas and New Jersey and Columbus and saying, tell me about this player and what is it that he needs. And I kind of already know. Again, most of the roster, of course, is the same as the Four Nations roster with a couple of exceptions. So I already know, thankfully, most of these players. But to then interface with their providers again, what is it that, we're all very formulaic, we're all very repetitious, we're creatures of habit, and some players more than others. And so our goal is to make sure that they deviate from those habits as little as possible. Hopefully zero. I can't promise zero, but we're going to do it, as little as possible. And so it's burdensome for us. And I feel the weight of talking to the providers for these other players, and getting to understand what it is that they're expecting. What do they need to perform? And some guys are super easy breezy, laid back. It doesn't really matter. I'll get to it when I get to it. And some guys are pretty regimented. At 16 minutes and 32 seconds on the clock, I eat a banana and I eat it with my left hand, right? And so those things, and I don't want it on my shoulders that I messed up your banana routine. I'm probably not going to be the best delivery guy, but if that's what you need, then if I can't execute that for you, I can probably find someone who can. So it's kind of equal parts, Brooks. It's the excitement, and it's the American in me, and it's the fan. It's just the sports fan. But then it's also, we're here to do a job, and my goal is to not mess it up. And so both of those things kind of in concert are exciting. It's not stressing me out. It's exciting me. I feel very prepared. And again, the Four Nations thing couldn't have prepared us better, because going into that experience, you've got the top 22, 3, 4, whatever players in America. And so they're used to getting not necessarily what they want when they want. They have these routines. And so it's like, well, if 7 of you need something at the same time and there's only 3 of us, I don't know how we're going to accomplish that. And it just magically worked. And so, that makes me, that gave us pause going into Four Nations. I think it makes us feel much better now. We've added a staff member, as I mentioned before. So that makes us feel even better. But again, our plan is to come home with a gold medal, and and I'm willing to do within reason whatever it takes to get that accomplished. And so very, very excited, very honored, really, really looking forward. It's like it comes up quickly, but now it feels like the days are dragging. And so we're having calls and all the things. And so we're really, really looking forward to getting there.
Maybe the most important question, Kev, if we medal, do you get a medal?
So it's funny that you say that, Max, because I just assumed the answer was yes, because I don't actually pay attention to anything. My wife told me that the answer is no. My wife told me that the only people that get medals are players, that coaches don't get them. Now, I believe, and you can, the internet can correct me. I think that either USA Hockey or USOPC or some body, I imagine, like with Stanley Cup rings or whatever, you can buy anything, right? So I imagine that you can get that. But in terms of like the numbers of medals that are allocated for each club, we have the 25 roster spots, so there's 25 medals.
All right. Well, bring home the gold. We'll get a gold medal to go with your Preds gold,
Right.
and we'll be looking
That's
for it on the bench every time Team USA is out there, Kevin. Thanks
All
so
right.
much for doing this.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time.
That is our USA Olympic athletic trainer, Kevin Morley, the head athletic trainer for your Nashville Predators. Back with more after this on the Predators official podcast. Welcome back to the Predators official podcast on Nashville Predators YouTube, ESPN 1025 The Game, and on all of your preferred podcast platforms. My name is Max Hers from Preds Radio, with Kara Hammer from Preds TV and Brooks Bratton from NashvillePredators.com. Preds coming off a 3-1 homestand, 4 sold-out home games in 6 nights at Bridgestone Arena, wins against the Islanders, Capitals, and Oilers, and a lot of fun moments along the way. We just talked about the Olympics with Predators head athletic trainer Kevin Morley, who will be on the Team USA athletic training staff. And guys, Steven Stamkos tried out a very popular Olympic sport. He's going to have to wait until 2028 in Los Angeles for the Summer Olympics to try and go up against my favorite athlete of all time, Mondo Duplantis, in the pole vault with some assistance from Capitals goalie Charlie Lindgren on Sunday night against the Capitals. And it was just another moment of many this homestand that got our fans in Smashville up and out of their seats as Steven Stamkos went up and out of his seat and nearly scored a goal.
Well, first off, very quickly, best of luck to Kevin Morley and keeping everybody's banana routine in check over there in Italy. Very important aspect for that. But for Steven Stamkos, yeah, we talk about all the accolades and the milestones and how well he's playing. But yeah, he said after the game, well, I've never pole vaulted before. That was something new. The one that came to mind, and some other people had mentioned it as well. I mean, this is probably 20 to 25 years ago. Marian Gaborik in Detroit flipping over Dominik Hasek, who came out on a similar play. And it is a little bit scary. Like when you're head over heels, all of a sudden you're like, gosh, I hope I don't land in the wrong place and come up with an injury. But the thing that really stuck out for me, and I posted the photo on X by the great Predators team photographer John Russell since day one, who seemingly never misses a moment and didn't miss this one. And I love hockey photography because the game is so fast and so physical. And when you get the perfect photo to freeze a moment in time, it's just so beautiful. And he captured it perfectly. And I put it out on X. I haven't had a post blow up like that in a very long time. People were so enamored with the photo and wondering what was happening and how it came to be. And that was just a cool moment that you don't get every day. First of all, you're glad that Stamkos is all right and the Preds got the win. That's most important. But little things like that get people talking and out of their seats, and the reactions in the crowd. I think every single person's mouth is got some sort of circumference open wide, not believing what they're seeing from Stamkos flying through the air. But yeah, that was a fun little nuance that we hope we never see again, honestly. You don't want Steven Stamkos flying through the air like that all too often. But what a shot from John Russell, and what a moment in that game in the homestand.
It was just so graceful.
Yeah. No, it really was.
You feel like the majority of people would like flip and dunk, but it was just really slow. It was like a ballet move almost.
Well, speaking of graceful dancing that got fans out of their seats this homestand, my favorite moment may have been the gloves coming off right off the drop Tuesday night against the Oilers. Darnell Nurse asked Mike McCarron, and McCarron said yes. Both teams wanted to get things going and set the tone. And I mean, that's how you lock the crowd in right from the start. I absolutely loved it.
Did you see the video that was posted from the Oilers were on their father's trip here in Nashville, and somebody actually caught Darnell Nurse's father sitting next to Connor McDavid's dad, who right off the jump looked and said, "What happened down there? Or what was going on?" And Darnell's father said, "I don't know. So nobody really knows why they were dropping right away because nobody can recall anything happening in the loss a week ago. But hey, they
Yeah, no,
answered the
I
bell.
I I don't think anybody expected it on the Preds bench either, but yeah, you're right, Max. The McCarron said after the fact that Nurse asked him to go, and it's a Tuesday night in January. It's not the most highly anticipated matchup necessarily. Sometimes you just need a little bit to get the people going, and that's one way to do it off the opening draw. And Kara, you talked about it in the opening segment. Just you start with that, and then you get the first goal of the game less than 3 minutes later. But that's a big moment, and UFC touched on that with McCarron as well after the game, that fighting's hard, it's tough, it's not an easy thing to do. Guys don't necessarily want to do it, but
Hmm.
they wanna stick up for their team. It's team above all else, and that really got the guys going on the bench, and sometimes you need that at the end of a long homestand. You played a lot of games, like, "Hey, Mike McCarron's into the game, and he's willing to fight for his entire team, and so we better pick it up a notch too." And so that was a great way to start that game, and we love to see that. And, Dirk Bentley, who was in the house, he was certainly entertained by that as well. Lots going on with Dirks on Tuesday on his bobblehead night. That was a fun one.
We're so happy to have Dirk Bentley in the building. His daughter, Evie, opened up the ceremony by singing the national anthem. But shout out to Dirk Bentley, who roasted on live television our good friend and colleague, Hal Gill. It might have been one of the best chirps we've heard all season. Dirks was promoting his new whiskey that he is coming out with, but you guys giving a little bit to Skillsy, like we kind of we're here for it.
I'm glad somebody finally put Skillsy in his place.
We love
I
to
don't
see
have
it.
I don't have the clout or the voice that Dirk Bentley does, but he speaks for all of us.
Dirks was making the rounds too. I noticed on the broadcast he was in the Oilers' father's suite a little bit, shaking hands, kissing babies, saying hi. But no, it's great. Dirks is a great friend of the organization, and was wearing Ryan O'Reilly's jersey to the game. And they were showing some clips of Dirks out on the ice with the guys he plays. His son Knox was the blue liner of the game. It really was a family affair. They're a hockey family, and that's just one of the cool things, right, about Nashville and Smashville is you never know who you're gonna get. Obviously, we knew we were getting Dirks that night with the bobblehead and everything else that comes with that. But that's just one more really great element of living in this city and playing hockey in this city is you get people who, we always talk about the hockey players wanna be rock stars and the rock stars wanna be hockey players, and it's such a cool melding of those 2 industries here in Nashville, and we love it when stuff like that happens and when they're not afraid to give it right back to, some of the broadcasters.
Cool moment in our Music City bobblehead series. When we come back, we'll give out the Big E Award of the week and also take your fan questions on the Predators official podcast.
Welcome back to the Predators official podcast. Kara Hammer, along with Max Hers and Brooks Bratton. And Maxie, our Big E person of the week, we had a moment of silence here at Bridgestone Arena. You were in the building. Can you share who our awesome person is?
Yeah, the Big E Award this week in memory of our friend Aaron Donick is going out to the Williams family and Vanderbilt paramedic Alan Williams, who was close to the Preds, someone who worked at games, was a big Preds fan, and many Nashvillians will remember there was a tragic helicopter crash, a life flight helicopter crash in November, so a couple months ago, and we lost a few people in our medical community, and Allen was one of them. He's a big Preds fan. He's a big Oilers fan as well. So that was the occasion for both the pregame moment of silence and a very special dedication last night, the Allen Williams Memorial Award, which every year will honor a member of the Vanderbilt Life Flight and Vanderbilt medical community with an affiliation to the Preds who goes above and beyond. And the first recipients are Allen's family, Allen and his family. So we are going to tack the Big E Awesome Person of the Week award onto that because we know that our friend Aaron would be so there for a family in their time of need. And we know the Preds family and the very closely knit Vanderbilt Medical and Life Flight paramedic family who is all over the place and on top of everything at Preds games and does such a great job. And they will continue to represent Allen every time they can. A good moment of reflection and great job by the Preds organization and Vanderbilt Medical to make sure that Allen will not be forgotten. So another special moment this week in Smashville, and we know there are so many in the Life Flight community and in the Preds community that will miss Allen, and we want to make sure we did our part, and we are so glad that we will be able to remember him with this award. So thank you to him and his family. Thank you to his family for being there and allowing us to honor them.
Well said, Max. Very well done. Yeah, it was a great moment of silence, and thinking of Alan's family and just everything that he meant to this community. So very well said. We will wrap things up here on this week's episode with our mailbag. Of course, you can always use hashtag Preds Podcast on X, or you can comment right below in the comment section as you're watching on YouTube. Please do. We want to hear from you. We want to discuss the topics that you're interested in. But Tia said she would love to know, and this is topical since we spoke to Kevin Morley, saying, I would love to know if any of the Preds players who aren't playing in the Olympics will still make the trip to watch some of the games and cheer on their teammates. It's a good question. It's a fair question. I will say I don't know that unless anybody is planning on vacationing in Milan, though, that will be part of the plan. I think that most guys at this time of the year, and especially with an Olympic break, it's been 12 years since we've had one of these extended portions. And I believe it's 9 or 10 days that the guys will actually have completely off, which is incredibly rare to have that amount of time off in the middle of a season. I imagine that most of them will be heading for tropical locales. We usually end up seeing a lot of Instagram posts on the beach during a break like this. So I think that'll probably be the plan for most of the guys. Not to say that they won't be keeping up with what's going on at the Olympics. I think there's always that sense of pride, and especially when you've got teammates playing over there, you want to see what's going on. But yeah, I imagine that most guys will be headed somewhere warmer than what they're accustomed to in a hockey rink this time of year.
Well, the players will be receiving what is the typical bye-week length of time away, and all of the players that are not in the Olympics actually will return for really a week and a half, almost 2 full weeks of practices on the back half of the Olympics. We'll be holding some team events in there. The Nash Vegas Casino Night will be part of that week, and it's going to be a lot of practice time, which is going to make up for the fact that there has been absolutely zero practice time leading up to the Olympics for basically every team because of how frequent the game schedule has been. So, I think it would be cool. It would be awesome to go to Milan, but by the point where the medal rounds are happening, the players who are not in the Olympics will be back already. So that would be, I guess, a hindrance to them doing that. As much as I think, Tia, your instincts are right, they all would want to be there as fans too.
Yes. And we will not be going. I've had a number of people ask if I'm going to cover it. I will not be. I think it'd be cool, but you never know how things are going to play out. And that's a long trip, an expensive trip for just a few guys going. So while we wish them the best, we will cover them from afar. But I myself am also looking forward to a little bit of time off. I don't think we're going to the beach, but just, catching up on some sleep and sitting on the couch. It's a perfectly fine vacation in my eyes.
Well, we'll get some sleep. The Preds will be back on the road for a back-to-back this weekend. Friday night in Denver against the Avalanche, Saturday night in Las Vegas against the Golden Knights. Back home on Tuesday, the 20th, for the start of a 3-game homestand against the Sabres at Bridgestone Arena. We also want you to know we have Smashville Live coming up next Wednesday, January 21st at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue with Kara and I. So hope to see you there. Thanks so much to Kevin Morley for joining us. Thanks to you for listening to us. For Brooks Bratton, Kara Hammer, and our whole team, my name is Max Hers. Thanks for listening to the Predators Official Podcast. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game.